yesterday's World Toilet Day Flush Forum, lobby group Equal Education picketed against what they called the Department of Education's refusal to comply with the norms and standards for school infrastructure. Earlier in the year, Minister Angie Motshekga said there will still be 4,000 schools with pit latrines by the end of this year, and the Eastern Cape is reported to have the highest number. In studio with us, we've got Tracy Malawana, who's the Deputy General Secretary at Equal Education. Tracy, good to have you in studio. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you so much.
And in our Cape Town studios, I think it's our parliamentary studios, we're joined by Elijah Mhlanga, who is Basic Education's spokesperson. Elijah, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, thank you.
Okay, all right, let's begin this conversation. Firstly, Tracy, let's set the scene. What was the World Toilet Day Flush Forum all about? What were they trying to achieve there?
So the World Toilet Flush Forum that was organized by Domestos along with other partners, which is one of them was the Department of Basic Education, was about the pit latrines, was about the unsafe school toilets that we have in schools across the country. So it was specifically about that. It was about raising funds to address the sanitation crisis that we are faced with, especially addressing the bedlocks that we have around sanitation.
So it was a general discussion about sanitation and about schools, but obviously schools coming under the spotlight quite a bit, and there was a move to try and raise a lot of money to try and build proper toilets in schools that don't have. Elijah, if I'm not mistaken, the minister was meant to address the forum, but unfortunately she pulled out and didn't address. What happened? Why did the minister not appear there?
No, the minister did not pull out. She was in another engagement at exactly the same time, which took longer than expected. And immediately after that, she had to go to see a doctor. She had a doctor's appointment. So that's the reason. Both speeches were prepared, and the scheduling had been done in a manner that would have allowed her to attend both events in the morning, but things don't always go according to plan. In fact, she had tried her best to be in both events because she recognized the importance of both. But an official was sent to the department who is responsible for school infrastructure, and a senior manager at that, and he was then able to convey the message of the minister.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk about the fact that the minister may have been a little bit nervous that she would probably face a lot of wrath if she did appear there, because obviously... I beg your pardon?
I'm saying not at all. I mean, why would I mean, the NECT, where she was addressing exactly the whole issue of sanitation as well. And you remember that from the SAFE initiative, which was launched by the president, it was announced that the NECT would be coordinating all private sector funding and support to ensure that we accelerate the delivery of proper school infrastructure for sanitation purposes. So there's no contradiction there. Even where she was, the same issue was addressed, and with other relevant stakeholders as well. It's just unfortunate that it was a busy day, that there were just so many things that were important and critical happening at exactly the same time.
Yeah. All right, Elijah, I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but I'll get Tracy's perspective and ask her, if the minister did appear, there was a lot of talk that you were going to confront her on the fact that the standards and norms, particularly when it comes to the school infrastructure, is just not being met. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't even mentioned in the speech that was going to be delivered by her. Just talk to us about what you heard yesterday and experienced.
So yesterday we were planning to picket outside the Flush Forum, and the picket was directed to the minister herself. We were demanding an end to the inexcusable refusal to recognize the critical of minimum norms and standards for school infrastructure, and realizing dignified and school sanitation for children from the working class. So that was our first demand from her. Then secondly, we wanted to tell her that we are aware, and we say it is unacceptable. The report that she submitted to the Polokwane High Court in response to Michael Komape's court case, it is unacceptable. She cannot say that it will it will be possible for her to begin to address the sanitation crisis by 2020 in the province, where we have, equalizers, where we have school-going learners who fall in pit latrines, especially responding to the court case that we even have that court case because of a 5-year-old who fell in a pit latrine 2 months after minimum norms and standards for school infrastructure were legislated. And lastly, we wanted to say to her, it is unacceptable for them to spend, money that is meant to address the sanitation backlogs in different provinces, appealing minimum norms and standards, appealing the constitutional right, appealing what they are meant to do. Yeah. So we wanted to engage with her about that.
Yeah, Elijah, I think some of these points are well worth responding to, and particularly when it comes to appealing these norms and standards. I don't think that asking for proper sanitation in a school as a norm and standard is something worth appealing. Do you agree? I mean, let's get the education department's stance on this.
Yeah, I think what we just heard there is a complete and disappointing misrepresentation of what is taking place. The facts are that we are building schools every day, we are ending schools every week, and we are building proper toilets across the country in all our schools. But we are working within financial constraints, and we have made this very clear. We did not say that we are only going to start addressing infrastructure issues in 2020. We are saying we don't have money to solve all the problems at the same time. Whereas if we were to go in all provinces right now, all the infrastructure teams have committed monies to addressing the challenges that we are facing in all our schools. And every day we go to work to ensure that all our learners are in a conducive environment. But if in the case of doing business, a court case arises, you cannot sit in your office and not go to court to articulate your position simply because you'll be accused of using that money for illegal issue. We need to be allowed as well to go to court and say what you need to say without feeling guilty about it, because it's also important that we are given that opportunity to exercise that right. And it helps because people get to see and read for themselves the things that we have to go through to try deliver on much needed school infrastructure. Yeah. So it cannot be correct that some people are allowed to go to court and the government or the department is not allowed to do so.
What is your understanding of the norms and standards? Why is the minister appealing that? What are the norms and standards?
No, maybe we need to talk about the actual delivery of toilets. Minimum norms for school infrastructure delivery. That means these are the basic things that every school should have.
Why would she appeal that? Why would she appeal that?
No. You see, now you're raising a legal issue. It's a complex one. If I were to sit down and explain to you what is happening there, you will understand that your question is wrong and misdirected. We are not appealing the norms and standards. There are technical constitutional issues there that we wanted clarity on. Mm-hmm. So I don't even want to enter that route, because the fact of the matter is that we are building schools as I speak to you, and every time we invite you to come cover it, you don't. Because to you, when we launch a new school, it's not a story, but when you see a mud school, to you it's a story. So
yes,
we also need to understand.
Elijah, it is a story.
Can I finish my
hold on,
point,
wait.
please?
I've given you a chance. I've given you a chance.
I was
Elijah,
still talking though.
I know you're still talking, but I think that I also have a right to just interrupt you when you are accusing us of not covering the opening of schools. Elijah, we are living in a country where children are dying going to toilets, and you're sitting here justifying it. I don't understand how you can justify it.
I'm not justifying it.
Yes, you are. You're telling us that we must celebrate the fact that you're opening new schools, but the schools that children do go to, they're dying in. Elijah, please.
Can I talk
as well? Yes, you can. But what I want you to talk about is, we're not talking about new schools. We're talking about the eradication of pit toilets in schools that exist. We're talking about the eradication of 2,127 pit toilets in the Eastern Cape alone. But you're talking to me about building new schools. I don't want to talk about new schools. We're talking about pit toilets.
That's exactly the point I was making, that you don't want to talk about the 205 new schools that we have built in the Eastern Cape that you are talking about, where there were 200 mud schools without any form of toilet. Right now, the brand new schools with state-of-the-art facilities, including proper flushing toilets. We are using rain harvest water where there are no bulk water infrastructure. We are using solar electricity where there's no bulk electrical supply. So we are doing all of those things to address all the infrastructure challenges in our schools. I'm saying to you, there's progress. We are making progress. It might not be at the speed that you South Africans are wishing for because of many other concerns. Even as I'm speaking to you right now, go to the Eastern Cape. You will find that there's a group of constructors who have stopped work of building schools because they have demands that we feel are not justified. And in the process of doing that, some learner somewhere is still going through a mud school which could easily be replaced. I'm saying there is progress. We're working on it. The impression that we are refusing to deliver is incorrect. We will continue to do the work that we need to do against all the challenges that we face on a daily basis.
Elijah, we're not criticizing the department for delivering on new schools. We are criticizing the department for not fixing existing schools. Why build new schools when the schools that are existing are falling apart and children are dying at them because there are no toilets? Why not start there? Why go and spend money on new schools when you need to fix those that are in existence? Okay, hang on. I'm going to let you speak. Whoa, pause. You asked me to speak. I want Tracy to speak because I think it's only fair to have this to and fro. Tracy, you've heard what Elijah's saying and the department's perspective. So what would you like to respond? What do you want to say about the new schools they're building and the toilets, the infrastructure that they're saying, you know, they are doing?
Okay, so firstly, I would like to speak about the Fix the Norms court case. So on the appeal that the Department of Basic Education, on their appeal, they were like appealing everything, including making the plans and progress report publicly within the reasonable given time. So they were appealing to publish the plans and progress reports, which is like insane. Then the other thing that I wanted to speak about is that we have 3,898 to be exact schools with only pit latrines. Then we also have schools that have some form of
countrywide.
Yes, countrywide. Okay. Then we also have which is plus minus 4,000, the one that you mentioned earlier. Then there's also schools that have some form of sanitation. We have like 340,000 of those schools, but they still have pit latrines that are not demolished. So that is another issue, that there is some form of sanitation, but there are pit latrines that still exist within the school premises. And you sometimes find that they are not using the other form of toilets that they have because there's, pit latrines, and maybe a school decide to use those pit latrines. So those are some of the things that we are also faced with, which is if you provide a school with maybe a new facility, then you need to close down or demolish the facility that is existing. So I'd say I can hear him speaking about new schools, but I think here we are speaking about the basic human right. We are speaking about access to water. We are speaking about access to electricity. We are speaking about access to sanitation. And he spoke about addressing, the sanitation crisis by 2020. I'm speaking about the report that your Department of Basic Education, along with the Limpopo Department of Education, Minister Mhlanga, along with the MEC within Limpopo, Mr. Ishmael, that submitted in response to the Polokwane High Court's ask. And they were saying that they can only begin to address the sanitation crisis by 2026. Yeah. And that shows that there's no political will, there's no sense of agency. Okay. And they didn't even make reference to the SAFE initiative, which is...
I want to also bring up, and Elijah, I'm going to let you respond to this, but there was also a call from both the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, and our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, to eliminate these pit toilets in 2 years. And the date that's been given, I know that the department did give this. They were saying, or you were saying, it cannot be done in 2 years, only by 2026. If the Finance Minister and the President are calling for 2 years, surely they know the funding, they know the model as to how much the department has, and that it is achievable in 2 years. Why is the department saying no only by 2026?
I think that's a misrepresentation. We never said no. We said, on the basis of the current funding structure and the monies that's available, it could take you this long to be able to solve all the sanitation problems at the same time. But the SAFE initiative is to accelerate exactly that, to cut down that projection and help us deliver sooner. That's why even yesterday, even in August, when the President launched the SAFE initiative, it was all about saying to the private sector, NGOs and individuals to say, come, let's work together, let's put in place money. We've been able to raise about 200 million from the private sector,
Great.
Which is going to be used to accelerate all these things. So
is that since the
we are
President's
working
call?
on a daily basis. We are working on a daily basis. It's this thing that we are going to start in some other year. I don't know where that is coming from. Why would we be building schools and handing them over every week and then start some other time? To me, there's just no logic there, because these are things that we are doing every day. And you cannot tell me about going to build a proper toilet in a school which is in a bad shape. It doesn't work like that. You conduct a full assessment, you say what is required here, and you make a determination that the entire school should be demolished and a proper one should be built. And in building that new school, you will also ensure that there's proper sanitation facilities that are age appropriate, because that's the other thing. It's not just any type of sanitation. You need to ensure that it is age appropriate for the younger kids, demarcated, and you build another one for the older kids in a different place. So we're doing all of those things. We are not able to do everything all at once because of logistical and financial constraints, but we are up to the task and we're doing it on a daily basis, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, well, we're happy to hear that, but Elijah, it feels like it's taking too long. And, you know, when you say you have to do assessments, when you have to look at the schools, you have to go back to the drawing board, you have to, you know, think about it, apply your minds. And while this is happening, these schools have been sitting there for years and years and years, and they're not empty schools. These are schools that are educating children. I'm not sure why it's not being addressed faster. And I think that that's the frustration of a lot of South Africans. I mean, Minister Motshekga, disregard is evident in when we talk about a disastrous plan to fix Limpopo school toilets. What is proposed on that plan, and what are you not happy with there?
No, we are building. You see, it's in a normal course of business. You can't just wake up today and say, okay, there's a mud school here or there's a school with no toilets, then you just go there and build. You need to conduct an assessment. I mean, that's the normal course of doing the business. Maybe you can get a construction person to tell you how it works. But also remember that some of the schools that you see there are already in the list of schools that are going to be rationalized, merged, or closed down.
What is the time frame? What is the time frame, Elijah? I'm going to push you on a time frame then.
Time frame for what?
For this, for your assessments and your work into planning to fix these schools. Because the last time we spoke, and I think we had as much, if not more of a heated debate, you and I. This is not the first time, and it's about the same issue. Pit toilets, and you told me the same thing, that the department is assessing and planning. Where are we at now? Because this is a few years later.
No. We have delivered. That's what I'm saying. Probably the last time I spoke to you here, in the ASIDI program alone, we have built about 150 schools. And right now we've gone well over 200 schools. And that's an indication that there's progress that we are making. And the provinces as well, they have their own school-build programs, which have their own time frames. But to us, school infrastructure is urgent, and we're treating it as such. That's why we're even running out of money in some instances, and we indicate that we are not able to do everything, but in some part of the country, in some part of the province, change has come. Those kids who didn't have a toilet today, they do, and others are waiting for it. I mean, your colleagues in the Eastern Cape were asking me about a new school which was completed this year, and they're saying, why is it that school cannot be handed over? We said, because Eskom has not put electricity in that area, and that school as well is affected, so it's waiting. So some of these things are beyond our reach, are beyond our area of responsibility. We need to work in collaboration with other organs of state.
Okay. All right, Elijah, thanks for your time again. Unfortunately, we have to end the interview here. But I just have to ask you, Tracy, what are you going to do now? What's the next step for equal education?
So I would firstly like to say that we need to comply with the minimum norms and standards for school infrastructure. The first deadline went, it came and went. We are now approaching the 2020 deadline, and they haven't done all the work that they were supposed to do in 2016. So those are some of the things that are worth noting. We are a few days before the fifth year since the minimum norms and standards for school infrastructure was legislated. And I would say that we wrote open letters to the President, Minister Ramaphosa, speaking about the Concord, the Constitutional Hill judgment. Constitutional Court judgment, sorry. We also wrote an open letter speaking about the Limpopo plan that they've submitted to the department. We'll keep on knocking at the Department of Basic Education's door, and we're hoping that at some point they'll be open to engaging with us. Okay. We'll keep on marching to your offices because it is our constitutional right. It is the right of our equalizers, our parents, of everyone to have access to proper and quality education.
All right, thank you very much again for talking to us here on the program. Tracy Malawana is the Deputy General Secretary of Equal Education, and Elijah Mhlanga, who is the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education. All right, just gone 8 o'clock.